I ended up running 20 marathons that year because I got the bug, and I wanted the world record for becoming the youngest person to run 100 marathons. I was only 26 at that time. 2 years later, I was the youngest 100 Marathon Club member, and at 28, and my first world record. The logistics were so tough. I mean, you're talking thousands of miles of driving every single week just to get
Yes.
to different marathons. You run one marathon on the Saturday, you've got to get in the car and drive 1,000 miles, perhaps wherever, just to go and get to another one. A weekend in this country, where there was odd weekends where I'd maybe run a marathon on a Saturday and then drive to the other end of the country, run another one. That was luxury.
Hi, my name is Michelle Lewis. 10 years ago, you'd have been lucky to see me run to the end of the road. These days, running is second nature to me. From marathons to park runs to putting my own running group through their paces. You'll often see me in suitably loud attire, getting ready to pound the pavements. And here's a secret. If I can do it, you can too. There's so many wonderful and inspiring stories in the world of running. And not just running, some of my favourite tales involve those who take to their wheelchairs, bikes, or simply their own trusty feet in an attempt to get fitter, faster, or just have some fun. In this podcast, I'm going to be in conversation with some of the most inspiring and fascinating of these people. Remember, it's your time, your speed, your way. The only person you need to keep up with is yourself. For some people, one marathon is a lifetime's dream. Others get the bug and go back for more. Then there's those like John Eales, who I spoke to on episode 12 of the Running Tales podcast, who put their body on the line to join the 100 Marathon Club. This week's guest takes it to another level. Steve Edwards is on a mission to complete 1,000 marathons. Yes, folks, 1,000 marathons. If that figure leaves you open mouth, then add to the achievement the fact that Steve only counts official marathons. Yes, official marathons. He doesn't include any when he has to walk and is aiming to reach 1,000 mark with an average time of less than 3 hours, 30 minutes per marathon. How? Why? Good questions, but I'll start off by asking him how it all began.
How it all began. Long time ago, actually. I know I don't look it, but I'm 58 now. So my running journey started when I was 18 years old. So back in 1981, I ran the first ever Coventry Marathon. That was my first ever race. Didn't know anything about running, made loads of mistakes, not quite in the time that I was looking for. But couldn't walk properly for a week afterwards, and swore I'd never run a marathon ever again. So that was the start of it.
I have to ask, at 18, most people, and maybe I'm assuming, are thinking pubs and nightclubs, and you're thinking, I want to do a marathon, not a 5K, 10K, a marathon. Something must have triggered that thought.
It did, and don't get me wrong, I was in pubs and nightclubs as well at that age. I'd left school when I was 16, so I'd already been working for nearly 2 years. And, you know, within 2 years, I was thinking, is this my life, going to pubs sort of 3 or 4 times a week? And I saw this poster advertising the first Coventry Marathon, and there was a massive running boom on at that time. And every city and town in the country had a marathon. And I saw this from my hometown, and I thought, I don't know, something just triggered in my head, and I just thought, I reckon I could, I'd like to have, give that a go. I had no idea where it would lead, or that it would kick me off into a journey into running. It was just, for me, just going to be a one-off, and just to sort of challenge myself to see if I could do it. But it did get me out of the pubs, because my running journey began after that, and I discovered a whole new life, and a much healthier and
so, like, at school, was you
better life as well.
So at school, was you into like cross country, or did you have a taste before you saw that Coventry Marathon advert?
I mean, my favourite sports were football and cricket, and I know from playing football that I was quite fast, sort of a fast runner, and I was always played down the wing because I had quite a bit of speed and quite a lot of strength. I'd done martial arts. I'd also started going to the gym and doing a bit of weight training. So I think from quite an early age, I'd always been quite fit and active.
So a week later, you're still not able to climb stairs. What happened next?
I did actually start going out running, and because what I discovered from the race was it wasn't just about, doing an event. It was everything around it, like running with different people, listening to everybody's stories, just being with other people, like-minded people, the whole camaraderie basically that is wrapped
Yeah.
around an event. So as well as the competition, competing with other people, competing with yourself, there's always those other stories. I didn't run another marathon again until the following year. And in fact, the first few years, my marathon running was just basically just one race a year. I did do other races, half marathons, 10 milers, 5 milers, but it was always the marathon that I found to be the event that really had some kind of magic about it that I just wanted to be a part of. So by 1988, I decided I was going to try and raise some money for Great Ormond Street, and so my aim was to run a marathon a month. At that time, running that kind of amount of marathons in a year just seemed ridiculous. People just couldn't believe it.
I was going to say.
Because people, it's kind of nothing, 12 marathons now to most people. And I know it's all relative, but at the time, this was kind of unheard of. Suffice to say, I met the 100 Marathon Club as it was then. There was only a few members back in the day, and I remember meeting somebody then, and they were telling me what they were doing. And this particular chap was actually trying to run the most marathons in a year to break the record, and at the time the record was 52. I was absolutely gobsmacked that anyone could even contemplate running more than a marathon a week. But anyway, to cut a long story short, I ended up running 20 marathons that year because I got the bug, and I wanted the world record for becoming the youngest person to run 100 marathons. I was only 26 at that time. 2 years later, I was the youngest 100 Marathon Club member, and at 28, and my first world record. And really,
Wow,
really,
congratulations.
it all stemmed from there. I just wanted more of that. I wanted to challenge myself more. I wanted to run more marathons. I wanted to see what times I could run, and just set other records in the multi-marathon running world, which is what I've tried to achieve all through the journey, really.
Without appearing too rude, I'm 45, and I remember as a kid watching my dad do marathons, and
Yeah.
there wasn't that many at races doing marathons. To now, there's sellouts and there's thousands at a marathon. What's your thoughts now from, like you say, back then, you was in your 20s, young kid doing these marathons, to now seeing, wow, you're a bit, squashing at the start line, but you've got the big buzz.
Yeah,
Still.
no, there's definitely been some huge changes over the last sort of 30 years. I mean, as I say, when I started, there was a massive running boom. It came over from America, the early 80s. Like I say, you could run a marathon, a road marathon, in every town and city in the country. That's how popular it was. I distinctly remember the big change when shops that previously wouldn't open on a Sunday, because Sunday opening wasn't even legal then.
Correct, yes.
As soon as that happened, that was the demise of road running on a Sunday. All of a sudden, the road marathon, the road race structure just started to just cave in, because obviously you had more traffic to contend with. The police costs were going sky high. Event organisers just couldn't, handle the costs, if you like, and they knew people weren't going to pay the massive cost associated with it. I know there's still big city marathons around, but they're few and far between compared to what we've got now. It's just totally changed. So there was a gradual demise of road marathons. There were trail marathons around, but not that many like there are today. And if you wanted to run, for instance, after that record I set, my next record I went for was running the most in a year. Because of the lack of marathons in this country, it meant if you wanted to do more than one marathon a week, you had to start going abroad. So typically my weekends in 1991 consisted of, traveling on the ferry, driving everywhere, went all over Europe, basically running a marathon Saturday and Sunday, because that was the only way you could run back-to-back marathons if you wanted to break those sorts of records. I look at the situation now and what it has been for the past few years. You can run multi-day, multi-marathon events in the same location, you can run 20 on the trot now in some of these events, and I look back and think, blimey, if I'd have had that at my fingertips back then,
How
life could have been
many?
so much easier. Because I'm not saying it's easy to do them, but what I am saying is logistically, it's a
Yes.
whole lot easier than it used to be. And part of the record, the guy who I met who went for that year record, he ended up running 71 marathons, which is fantastic
In 1 year?
in 1 year. So that was back in 1990. In 1991, I thought I'm going to have a go for that record. There was an American chap going for the same record. He ended up running something like 81 or 82, and I ended up running 87. So I got the new record. Now,
Wow.
yeah, so 87 was the record that I set, and that stood for a few years. But the record today is an American guy, and he's run something like 200 and something marathons. These are going to be official events, and
How's that possible? That's got to be like every other day.
exactly. But it just shows you the events that are around today, basically these multi-day events at the same location, that have made it logistically a lot easier. So when I set the record, the logistics were so tough. I mean, you're talking thousands of miles of driving every single week just to get
Yes.
to different marathons. You run one marathon on the Saturday, you've got to get in the car and drive up 1,000 miles, perhaps wherever, just to go and get to another one. A weekend in this country, where there was odd weekends where I'd maybe run a marathon on a Saturday and then drive to the other end of the country, run another one. That was luxury, because most weekends it was driving all around Europe, running in Germany, Holland, Belgium, France, even as far away as
Wow.
we drove to Austria one weekend to run in Vienna. And then the idea was you would drive back to the UK on Saturday night and try and run a Sunday marathon back in the UK. And then hopefully you're back at work Monday. And there was no budget airlines in those days, so
No.
you did everything in the car and on the ferry, because that was the cheapest way to do it. And I look at the people today who are running multi-day events at the same location. All they've got to do is get out the sack and have the breakfast and then walk to the start line. And I think you've got it. This is easy because you haven't got to drive anywhere.
So what was it, the buzz of visiting new locations back then? So what got you to, was you chasing numbers? Was it the record that made you do all this traveling just to do a marathon?
So the main generator for that was having the record for the most in a year. But to back that up, what I also wanted to do was to run them in the fastest times I could. So those 87 marathons, I actually managed to average a time of 3 hours 14 minutes per marathon over those 87 marathons. Now that's something that's never been broken, up to now. So the record for the most marathons has been broken, but the times people are doing them in now are sort of 5 and 6 hours. Whereas the record that I set, I was doing them in sort of between 3 and 3.5 hours.
The one with who's got the most in the UK? Is it someone called Brian? I met him in Barcelona a couple of years ago. But he had to have a hip operation. He was on like 1,300. Is it still a UK guy, or is it someone?
So the most marathons anyone's ever ran in the UK, Brian Mills. Brian would hold that British record. The most that anyone's ever ran anywhere, and you're looking at the whole world, there are a couple of German fellows who've run over 2,000 marathons. But there's a lot of question marks about whether they're all official races and all of this sort of thing. So I don't tend to take a lot of notice of the actual totals. For me, it's always been about running multiple marathons as fast as I can and trying to establish records for landmarks. So, for instance, one of my records that I set in 2012 was becoming the first person to run 500 marathons all under 3.5 hours.
Just to some of us, it's like one marathon, just to do one marathon, whatever the time. You're saying 500, but no, let's put more pressure on myself and set a time for each one as well.
Yeah.
You're definitely competitive against yourself, aren't you?
It's definitely competitive against myself, really hard on myself. And, for me, and I know everybody's goals are all different, and want this to appear arrogant, but it's, for me, my goal has been not just to run the numbers, but to try and run them in the best times possible, so that I can look back in years to come and say, I was the first person to do this, or I was the first person to do that, or and the ultimate goal now really is to try and run get to the 1,000 marathons and keep my average finish time under 3 hours 30 minutes. At the moment, I'm on 903 marathons. My average finish time is 3 hours 19 minutes, and I am getting slower. But if I can keep that 3:20, 3:21 for 1,000 marathons, that's going to be a huge, huge world record that I hope would probably stand for a long time. Because you're talking about trying to maintain a quality of running over a long period of time. And as you get older, obviously, well, believe me, it gets ever more difficult. So
you've done 903 official marathons, yeah?
Official marathon races, yeah.
Everyone's going to ask, what's your fastest and what's your slowest time out of that 903?
Okay, so I've had some absolute stinkers of runs. Everybody gets them from time to time, yeah. So my slowest ever, where I've had to end up walking, is 4.5 hours. But I don't count that, because another one of my strict guidelines for me is that if I ever walk during a race, I don't count it, because I don't feel as though I have ran that marathon from start to finish. And for me, I have to run it start to finish for it to count. So I don't count the ones where I've had to walk. I've had to walk maybe in 4 or 5 marathons where something's gone completely wrong, like I've had a bad gut, or I've had sunstroke, or
but you've still finished it officially.
Still finished it, because another one of my guidelines is I never want a DNF. So even if I've had to walk because of some circumstance out of my control, and I've just been not well or whatever, then I've just finished it, but I wouldn't count it. So as I say, that's only a handful. My best time is 2 hours 51 minutes.
Oh wow!
And yeah, so that was back in 91 in Stockholm. Funny enough, after I did that, and that was the year I was going for that record for the most in a year. So I didn't have time to celebrate. It was a plane back to the UK, and I ran the Poole Marathon the following morning. And I ran that in something like 3 hours 6 minutes or 3 hours 7 minutes or something like that. So I was extremely fit. Touch wood, generally I've been okay, not too many injuries. I've managed to keep myself fairly fit and healthy. As I say, on any given day, I've always tried to run to the best of my ability on that day. Given that I'm not always fully, given I'm never going to be always fully recovered, because I've run a marathon literally days before or even the day before. So,
do you get faster when you do, say, I'm sure you've done like these 10 marathons in 10 days. Have you done groups like that?
I have done those, yeah.
Have you got faster each time, knowing that you are someone that has done this since you're 18, or do you go up and down on your times?
If we're talking about a specific event like the 10 in 10, I've done 4 10 in 10. So first 3, I've tackled them slightly differently each time, because I've learned quite a lot after doing the first one. I learned a lot after even doing the second one. My fastest time for 10 marathons in 10 days, I averaged 3 hours 19 minutes a day, and that was on the Windermere. That was on the Braithwaite Windermere 10 in 10. Another one of my records that I set was being the first person to set a 10 in 10 record for the fastest time. Again, that's been smashed to smithereens since, but it was nice to be the first to set it anyway. Yeah. But, having learned a lot, I found that, you can run yourself into better fitness and end up running faster as the 10 days goes on. Strange as it sounds, you'd think you get more tired.
Yes.
You do get more tired, but if you do pace yourself quite well, you might find that you have, what I found was I'd slow down for the first 3 or 4 days, and then I'd start speeding up again.
Because your body's got used to it? Or
starts to get used to it, I think. And I guess that you're running yourself into, what I learned was after the first one is not to train right up to the point of injury, so that you're literally as if you're about to start and do a one-off race, but to go into the event not quite as fully fit as you would normally be for one race, and then gradually your peak fitness arrives during the 10 days that you're actually doing the 10 in 10. So I don't know whether I've made that clear, but normally you would train for a one-off race up to almost to peak fitness, well, to peak fitness, and you'd run your race, and that would be
and then
it.
crash for a month.
Exactly. Whereas for a 10, you're not doing that. So the tactics are differently. So you would train almost to peak fitness, but not quite.
Okay.
But it's gauging where your peak fitness is. So you don't literally arrive at the start. So you should arrive at the start line, raring to go, but not, being prepared. You've got several days of this. And
so it sounds like treat the first one or two as a training run.
Almost
attitude,
like that.
And then
Yeah. So almost like that. And then you've really then got to balance your, the performance angle. For some people, it's just literally about completing it in one piece if they can. They're not really bothered about the times. But if you are bothered about the times, then and I was, it's about making sure you balance each day. So you do want to get the best out of yourself, but you don't want to actually break yourself on that one particular day. Break yourself on day 10, but.
So what's the longest break you've had during a marathon? And is it because of injury that you had to have that break?
You mean a break from running a marathon?
Yes,
yeah. Well, we're on one now, obviously. The last marathon I ran at the moment.
You say that, but I know you don't count it as official. And we'll talk about the lockdown, etc. But it's all virtuals. But we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, sure.
If we say before lockdown,
before COVID, yeah, okay. Well, in 2010, I did fracture my ankle. So this was a stress fracture, basically from overtraining, doing too many miles. So it's my own fault. And I ran a marathon in June, and the stress fracture occurred 2 weeks after that. So I never ran another marathon for the rest of that year. So I guess the longest, and then I started back in January 2011. So that's nearly 7 months. That's the longest I've had a period of no marathons.
I have to ask, are you moody? Was she really, really moody? Because I'm 11 weeks at the moment because I've got piriformis. I can never pronounce the word.
Piriformis,
syndrome, and my TFL. And I'm so down, Steve. How was you? 7 months. Did it affect you?
First month was a nightmare. I really drove my wife mad.
Yes.
I was climbing the walls, and in the end, you've just got to find yourself a totally different interest, something else that you can get your head into to take your mind off what you can't do anymore. But I think it's also important to keep sight of the fact that it's not forever, that you will get back to it. And in the meantime, you've got to maintain a level of fitness that won't be quite the same as running. But what I discovered was aqua running. So I was down the pool 3 or 4 times a week, literally running in the water with a body float. So there's no weight bearing at all. So even with a broken bone, you can literally run in the water, and the strength and the fitness that you maintain because you're doing the running action against the resistance of the water. All that I'd read about it online suggested that you should maintain about 95 to 98% of your running fitness. And I was quite skeptical when I read it, but when I did get back to running, although it seemed strange putting your weight on the floor, within a few days, I realised I hadn't lost that much fitness, and it was the aqua running that kept that fitness. But then all you've got to remember then is keep sight of the fact that you will get back on the road. The injury will heal, but you've got to just make sure when you come back, you just come back and your body is still strong. You don't want to lose your body strength, i.e. do nothing. Cross training, I think, is the key, and just stay focused on the fact that you will get better and that you will return. That's the hardest part, I think, because I think some people just think, I'm never going to run again.
It's true. You do get to that point that every time each week goes by, you're like, oh wow, my fitness is getting worse, and I find mentally it's affecting So it might not be physically, I might be getting stronger because I'm doing what the physio tells me to do, but mentally it's like, will I? And I think a lot of runners can relate to that as well. When you've got an obstacle in your path, when you're putting a challenge forwards on yourself, that it's mentally, not the body itself,
Definitely.
that can be the challenge.
The biggest challenge is the mental challenge, because once you're over, let's say that it's an injury that you've got, once you're over the initial part of the injury and you're getting treatment and physio and you're doing all the rehab work, but you're just waiting for the time when you can physically start to, go out for that run again, or you go on the treadmill, and that's what I ended up doing. I went on the treadmill just for a couple of times first, just to make sure everything was okay. Getting your head around it all is a massive, massive hurdle, really. And like I say, I think it just helps to divert your attention into something else. I ended up just painting all the outside windows of the house and just getting my head into stuff that I hadn't had a chance to do.
I'm growing vegetables at the moment.
Yeah,
so
whatever it is. Yeah, whatever it is that sort of, I don't know, diverts your energy into something else. But the cross-training element of it is really important that you keep that going.
I hear a lot about core. A lot of runners like yourself say focus on the core. Is that with yourself? Is that a strong belief?
Definitely is. And if I go back to when I did start running, I'd done martial arts for 3 or 4 years, and I'd also done quite a lot of gym work. And as I say, I'd been really active as a kid, in terms of running around. And well, that's the way everybody was in the 70s, in the late 60s, early 70s. Kids were active. Every kid was active, because that's just the way it was. There was no computers or anything like that to distract you.
No skateboards, bikes.
Yeah. You'd spend hours and hours outside. You didn't want to come back home. You'd go out in the morning. You didn't come back till night time, and you're just outside all the time. But yeah, I'd got a good base, if you like, a good base of strength and fitness before I even got into running, and I think that's really important. So when somebody starts out in running, I would always recommend that they do body strength exercises. So it could be weights. I think weights are very good. The Swiss ball, so doing core work with that, or you can just go on the floor and use your own body weight. And it's just a lot of simple things like, press ups, for argument's sake. Press ups, such an easy thing to do. You can do them every day. You might not be very good when you start, but believe you me, if you start doing them 3-4 times a week, you gradually get stronger and stronger. And when you do press ups, upper body strength is such an important thing for a runner, because the idea to become a stronger runner is that you're a more efficient runner. Because you're more efficient, you usually find you start getting quicker, but also you're protecting your body from the massive impact, the pounding, and therefore your body becomes more durable. So you're less susceptible to get those injuries in the first place.
Okay.
But the common mistake people make when they get into running is they just build up the miles. They think that's the be all and end all of becoming a good runner, and they neglect any strength and core work. And in the initial weeks and months, they might see themselves getting quicker. But as those distances start to go up and they start tackling a half marathon, a marathon, and all, their body starts breaking, because it will. Because all they've ever done,
the core and the upper,
all because they've ever done is just run. So a big motto of mine is get your body fit to do your sport. Don't let your sport make your body fit. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, get fit to do your sport. So do all the things that are going to make you strong enough to do your sport, so that you're durable enough, you're not going to break down. Don't rely on your sport to try and make you fit. It's a huge difference in that way round, if you look at it.
That's true.
So, so in the early part of somebody getting into running, rather than spending, let's just say they did half an hour a day, that's 3 hours a week if they have one rest day. Of those 3 hours, if that's their total free time they can give up to exercise, I would use half of that time for core and strength work, and the other half for running. And then gradually, as they become stronger and their fitness, their strength and their core gets better, then they can put more time into their running without fear of getting injured and breaking down.
Do you believe
So
in fartlek sessions and hill sessions then?
yeah, so I've done my hill reps this morning. Friday is generally my hill reps
How
morning. I
many?
hate
Go on, what did you do? What did you do?
So we've got a hill near us, which is a third of a mile. It's not a massive steep hill, but it's a steady gradient. But it's it's hard enough to make you really work hard. And I do 10 reps on that. So a third of a mile, that's my tongue's hanging out on every rep, and I literally feel like throwing up by the end of it. So you always know when you've had a good session when you feel that way. But for me, the best session of the week is the hill reps. Doing hills. I guess I can't think of anybody who really likes doing hills. But if someone said to me, "What's the best session that you can possibly do?" I would say hill reps every time. If there's one session everybody should do every week, it's hill reps. The next best session, I think, and I try to do one of these every week, is a tempo run. So that's anything from sort of 3-4 miles up to 7-8 miles at a pace that is like 80% threshold. So
Okay.
if you were saying, well, what does that mean? Well, if somebody was talking to you, you would only be able to give them 2-3 word answers because you just couldn't talk like I'm talking to
Yes.
you now, because that means you're not running quick enough. So you heavy breathing. You can sort of give 2 or 3 word answers, but that's it. And then the next best session is literally the one you mentioned, intervals. So you're talking about a set distance. You're running pretty much flat out 95+%. And that can be like for 2 minutes or for 3 minutes, or you might do a pyramid of 1 minute, 1 minute rest, 2 minutes, 2 minutes rest, 3 minutes, so on, and then work back down. And again, it really depends what your sport is. If you're a short distance runner or a long distance runner, as to how long those reps should be. So a marathon runner would typically do a lot more of kilometer reps or mile reps or 800-meter reps, or 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes, that kind of thing. Whereas if you're training for sort of 10K half marathon, you might do shorter reps. So yeah, you tailor the reps around what races you were looking to do.
So moving on then, so what's your favourite marathon? Come on, you've got a big choice. And let's say to the UK, because you have been abroad.
Yeah, I mean, I have got a huge choice, and I'm spoiled for choice. And there are loads that I absolutely love now, but for different reasons. So to give you an example, I love the big city marathon, so I love London.
How many times have you done London?
So London I've ran 24 times.
I can't even get in once, and you've done it 24 times.
24 times. And
best of age. Being cheeky there.
Yes, indeed it is. Yeah. So I've been lucky in that I've managed to run a time that's good for my age. So that's how I've generally got in. The first time I ran it was in 1992, and that took 3 years or 3 attempts or 4 attempts or something like that to get in. So,
Even
but since then I've never really looked back. There was 2 or 3 years, 2000, 2001, 2002, I think it was, when I didn't get in, but I went through a bit of a period of my running where my times had slipped, so I couldn't get the times. But after that, touch wood, I managed to get in. This year should have been 25, but of course,
and on
didn't
2020,
happen.
yeah.
I'm still hoping that in October it'll still go ahead, but we don't know yet. We're still waiting, so we'll have to just wait and see on that one. And then, it's whether I'll get in again. I don't know, because I can't even do the qualifying time now because I have slowed down. And even at my age, 58, you still have to get into 3:20 to get in. And
Wow.
it's so difficult. It really is. I just can't believe it's such a high standard. So there you go.
You say you're getting on a bit, but there's runners out there. Okay, they don't there's not many doing marathons, but there are 1 or 2 that are in their 70s and 80s. What do you think about that? Do you think, oh no, I'm never going to retire because I've got records to break?
I'll tell you what I do think. I think it's brilliant. I think it's fantastic. And I just hope and pray that I can still get out and do that, any kind of running when I'm that age, let alone marathons. If I could just run a 5K or go out for a 2-mile jog, I'll just be so happy that I can do it. I think for me, really, when I look back, and I look at other runners, it's not purely about your age, but how long you've ran for. And when I consider how long I've ran for, I'm approaching my 40 years of running long
Wow.
distances.
Yes, yes.
And so it's not just your age. I know I'm not old. I mean, by comparison, as you say, quite rightly, people in their 60s, 70s, even 80s who are running, but they may not have started till they were 40 or 50 or, I started at 18. So in terms of the length of time I've been running, I think that has an impact as well. So, yeah. And I do try to look after myself, and I do try and eat healthily, and I eat all the right things, and I try and recover well after all my training and
Talking
racing.
of food, I will interrupt. What do you eat during a marathon? Like what, and what do you consume? Water, chocolate biscuit? What do you
No,
take with you during a marathon?
chocolate biscuits come later, I'm afraid, because I do love chocolate and all that kind of stuff. But I'm pretty strict on race nutrition, so I make sure beforehand that I'm well hydrated. The product I mainly use, Voom, Voom Nutrition. So they do like a good hydrate product. They do good recovery bars, which are like protein bars, but they're like toffee fudge flavour, which are really good. And then they've also got a good range of carbohydrate bars as well. Now, I used to take quite a few gels at one time during a race. The gels were my thing, but I've moved over to the bars because just something to chew on, just something a bit different. I find sometimes with gels, you don't want the whole gel in one go. You only want half of it, and then
Don't you feel sick from them?
Not really sick, because I think the idea with the gel is that you got to make sure you drink with it, but it's not always. It's
Possible, yeah.
possible exactly. So yeah, and I just find the bars. Don't get me wrong, I still carry a couple of gels with me as well, but I also carry a couple of the carbohydrate bars. And I think just the solidity of having something to munch on is just sort of better than swallowing loads of syrup during a race. Later on in a marathon, what I find is when you don't really want to, when I'm really knuckling down for the last sort of 7, 8, 9 miles, and then the race is starting to get quite tough, and that's the most important part of a marathon. It's really how you finish it, not really how you get into 18 miles, 17 miles, 60 miles, whatever. That's you're not. They say the halfway point's 20 miles. It's that last 10k that is really the bit that counts. So you've got to make sure you've got that energy in you that's going to carry you all the way to the end. So it's getting it in before you start to feel you need it. And sometimes the easiest, quickest way is just with a gel. So my last gel, which I take around sort of 17, 18, 19 miles, that's the one that really is important to me. Because I know that's the one that's going to hopefully get me through to the finish line without, maintaining the same sort of speed that I've been running at. That's the key to a marathon. I think it's the most important part of the race.
Do you have a porridge or banana before in the morning?
Definitely a massive bowl of porridge.
How many hours before a marathon?
I always eat 3 hours before a start of a race. So if a race starts at 10 o'clock. I've got to make sure I've had my breakfast by 7 o'clock, just to give me that amount of time. And then from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock, I'll sip on a hydration drink just to top me up as much as I possibly can. So I've got the best possible chance of not running out of glycogen when I'm running. So, and then obviously it's topping up during the race then.
And then afterwards, most of us are like, yes, alcohol. In your case, though, you're like, oh no, I've got to do it again tomorrow. What's your treat? What's your...
Well,
or is it the satisfaction of finishing it?
Definitely the satisfaction of finishing, but because I know that I could have another race, literally. I haven't done a double now for a long time. I decided a while back I wouldn't do the day after anymore. I just think it's not being kind to my body doing that. I am interested in the longevity of my body. I want to keep going. So, if I ran one sort of 4 or 5 days later, a midweek marathon, then I'm happy to do that. But I don't think I'll be doing doubles again. But yeah, literally, it'll be a recovery drink and protein in my body. That's the first thing. I've got to make sure that gets into the system. Alcohol can come later, so when I get home, have my dinner, love a bottle of cider or whatever. It's just so nice, and then I'm just ready just to chill out in front of the telly and just eat chocolate and whatever else. But first thing is getting the healthy stuff in. That's the important thing. The alcohol and the chocolate could come later on, basically.
So, your advice on after a marathon, you've done it, stretching, putting your legs in cold ice. What do you do to help you speed up your recovery?
I've changed little things over the years with age. I used to be pretty much definitely stretch and definitely ice bath and compression leggings. These days, I don't really worry about the ice bath so much, but a bit of light stretching after a marathon, because sometimes it's so. I mean, I'm literally hardly able to walk after a marathon these days. That's how. That's what it's like now. It's getting so tough to run the whole distance, and at the end of it, I really just want to lie down. But I try and do a little bit of light stretching after every training run I do. I always do a 5 minutes of good stretching, because I think it is important. I've got a foam roller at home, nice pimply, horrible looking thing that
Monster.
Everybody, a monster. Yeah, I believe in using that every day. So I also have a massage every 3 or 4 weeks from a professional physio masseur, so a good deep tissue massage that hurts. But I think that's useful. But then using the roller most days as well. So 5 minutes on the roller, and then after a race, definitely, especially if you've got to travel any distance, is compression leggings, which I've always found to be useful. So you wear them to travel in, and then I even wear them so overnight as well when you're sleeping, just so the next morning your legs just don't feel like the DOMs that you get. So you just don't. Okay, your legs are tired, your body's tired, but you haven't got that horrible stiff, achy feeling that means that you can hardly move, because I do like to go out for 2 or 3, very, very steady miles, the following morning, just to kind of loosen up and everything. But if you're
That's
stiff,
a good tip. I've never heard that tip before.
Really? I mean,
yeah, not after. It's usually during that you wear the compression. But that's a good tip.
Always done it, and I've done it for a long time, and it's always worked for me. I think the jury's still out on some of these recovery things. There's still people who question ice baths, still people who question compression, and I think, try them. If you find you get some benefit from them, then that's fine, because they work for you, and I think that's what's important. There's no, people I know want to know all the answers to all the questions. What should I do? What should I eat? And there's no real one size fits all. It's about finding what works for you. And in terms of your training as well, find out what works for you in your training, because some people have really hectic lives. They've got families. They can't do certain things at certain times of the day, and they've only got limited time to do stuff. So they've got to find a training plan and a schedule and recovery and all of that kind of thing. It's got to fit around their lifestyle, and that's why I say there's no one size fits all solution. Yeah.
So we mentioned earlier the lockdown. How have you coped? Because it's put your world record on hold. Are you nervous that when we do get back to the marathons again, which, let's be realistic, this year is looking really, really slim. Like every week, big ones and cancel. Well, most of them are saying, got to cancel. How are you feeling about this?
I think initially, the first few weeks, I was thinking it's probably an enforced rest from marathons is probably not a bad thing. And I think maybe a lot of other people were feeling like that as well, who run marathons regularly. But I tell you, as the weeks have gone on, I've been getting more and more skeptical about, when this is all going to restart, if they ever really do restart. Because at one point recently, I was actually thinking the way this is going, they might not even allow mass participation events again. That's how worried I was getting. But then I look at the beaches at Bournemouth, and I look at what's going on with. I know what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen tomorrow night with the pubs and the restaurants or whatever else. And I just think, without wishing to moan and groan about it all, we're all in the same position. But there does seem to have been a lot of inconsistency with what they have opened up and what they haven't. And at the moment, you still can't go to a gym and you still can't go for a swim. And yet you can go into the pub, you can go into a restaurant. So for me, it's disappointing that they're sending out this peculiar mixed message about it's all right to go out and drink and eat, but it's not all right to exercise.
Agree.
So, and I think, and that's a real shame that it's like that. But I'm hoping that the smaller events can at least start up sometime this year. So, there's still a lot of multi-terrain events around, as you know, that maybe only have 40, 50 runners or even less sometimes. They're very low-key events, and I'm at least hoping that some of those can get going. But as we're talking, I know that Manchester still haven't cancelled, Brighton still haven't cancelled, London still hasn't. Well, Brighton's scheduled for late September, Manchester's early October, I think, and or mid-October, and I think London's early October. So, the jury's still out. I don't know whether they'll be still held or not. Don't know. But
have you thought about doing a virtual run?
No, it doesn't appeal to me, if I'm being honest, because it wouldn't be an official event and it wouldn't be a race. It wouldn't be an official race that I'd be able to count towards the record. So I have thought about doing marathon distances in training, but even that, because there'd just be no point, because until I know when we can get back to doing marathons, my longest training run's only been 12 miles. So what I'll do is, and I've been running 50 mile a week-ish average. I've been doing the quality sessions. So my plan is really to sort of wait to see when we're likely to get our first marathon event, and then I will put in a couple of longer runs leading up to that. And I know the first couple back will be so tough, but I don't want to just go out and run marathon distances in training or 20-mile runs thinking that, well, A, because I'd hate doing them, and B, because if you don't even know when you're going to be running marathons again, which might not, as you say, might not be this year, then I don't see the point in wearing my body out just for the sake of doing them. So
I'm going to ask you a few now, so a few questions. So trail or road, what do you prefer?
Road.
Why road?
Well, I was brought up on the road. Roads, out of the two, roads are where you can get your better times because you can run quicker on the roads. Trail marathons take a lot more out of your body because of the uneven surface. So you are working a lot harder. Don't get me wrong, I do a lot more trail now than I ever used to, because it's the only way to get your numbers up. Because if I relied on road, I'd never be able to do that number of marathons anymore, because there's not many road marathons left.
No.
But yeah.
Have you ever been beaten by someone in fancy dress?
Yes.
What was it?
Yeah, in London by it was an Elvis. I've been beaten by Superman, Spider-Man. I'm not ashamed to say it either, because some of these runners are like bloody good runners. They're like, without fancy dress, they could, they're like 2.5 hour marathon runners, and when they put the fancy dress on, they only seem to slow down by 15-20 minutes. So they're still running under 3 hours, and so I'm not ashamed of that. But yeah.
One question a lot of runners at the moment, especially the circle I'm in, that we talk about is running trainers. We've never found the right one. What's your advice on running trainers?
It's like a lot of things in life now. There's so much choice out there. You can be overwhelmed, I think, by just what to wear. My first advice, really, just get down to a specialised running shop. Let them measure your gait. Let them watch you run on the treadmill, and a specialised running shop will have a treadmill. Let them look at you, and let them give you a choice of the various brands of the model trainers that they think fit with how you run. Most people only need a neutral shoe, but I see a lot of people wearing controlled stability shoes. I used to wear them when I was younger, thinking that I needed them, but actually, when I did get measured, when I did get checked, they said you only need a neutral shoe. I've got a leg length difference by about 2.5 centimeters, which sounds quite a lot. But the way you run, your body has it's quite incredible how your body finds a way to make you run, even though you have imperfections, if that's the right way of putting it. So I just run with a heel raiser in one shoe. I've been doing that for years, and that's the way that it compensates for my leg length difference. quite a lot of people have got a leg length difference, but they don't even know they've got it because they automatically adjust to compensate for that. But that's the first advice I'll give. And then the second really is, once you've found a model of shoe and a brand of shoe that really work for you, just buy loads of them.
Yes.
wait till they're on offer and just get a load of, because the thing is they seem to do now, and I know why they do it, obviously they're interested in making as much money as they can, is that they keep bringing out a different version of the same model. So they keep adapting them and changing them and doing this and that and fiddling around and just any excuse just to bring out a newer version. So you end up with 3 versions in the same year. So what I've always done is sort of bought, the 2 versions ago version, one, so that you get it cheaper because they're selling them off. Now I used to swear by ASICS. I think their shoes were brilliant. I think the cushioning system was brilliant. And then about 2 years ago, the toe box seemed to have got a bit smaller. I started getting more bruised nails, which you should never get. And even though I always take another bit of advice is always go to, when you get your shoes, always wear a half or one size bigger than what you would normally wear in a normal shoe.
I wear
literally to cover the expansion of you, because your foot does swell when you run. And it just stops you getting bruised nails and losing nails. It's just horrible getting black nails. But anyway, going back to the ASICS saga. So what I did find out was the person who used to do, the head person at ASICS left ASICS and he joined a company called 361 Degrees. So they're the shoes I've now gone to because I believed in the design that this person did at ASICS, and I've not looked back. The 361 Degree shoes for me, they're not so well-known brand like ASICS and Adidas and Nike because they're still up and coming, but they're a Chinese company, but they do operate out of Europe and the UK, and I've not looked back since. The 361, my only concern with them initially was because they were a lighter shoe, whether they would be, because ASICS I always found to be a very durable shoe. They'd last me, I don't know, anywhere between 500 and 600 miles per pair of shoes. But the 361, I thought, they're going to be as durable. But actually, the one pair just approaching 500 miles and it's still going well. I've got another couple of pairs on the go, which I now use off-road, and they're approaching 600 miles. But then I've always, I guess the other bit of advice I'll give on shoes is always rotate 3 or 4 pairs at a time. Never wear the same pair 2 days on the trot. So if you can afford to get 3 or 4 pairs, just rotate them all. And just wear one pair one day, one pair. And you'll be surprised just how much extra mileage you can get out of them, and they won't break down as quickly. So, because you're giving them a chance to recover.
So what do you think of these Nike shoes then? Are meant to make you go faster? Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm quite a purist when it comes to sport, and I think that if people are looking to try and buy a bit of kit that gives them a competitive edge, whether that be a bike with certain bits and pieces on it, or whatever it is that makes them cycle faster, or a swimming costume that makes them swim faster, or a pair of running shoes that makes them run faster, then I'm not really into that. I think that's cheating. To me, if you can't do it from your own ability with just normal kit, then I think you're cheating yourself as well as cheating everybody else. So I just don't go with it at all.
So what did you think of Elliot Kipchoge and the 2 hour mark?
Well,
where he got 1 hour 59 minutes.
Yeah. So in terms of Elliot himself, class athlete, can't take it away from him. He's got the world record in a normal pair of shoes. He's a fantastic athlete, fantastic marathon runner. I can't even begin to imagine what it's like to run that quickly. So in terms of him and what he's done, he's a fantastic athlete. In terms of what he did, I guess it was a bit of a publicity stunt, but I think the main message from that was, I think what he was trying to show was it is possible, given the right conditions and the right situation, and on the right day, if your body's feeling, because it's always on the day, and that goes for all of us. You never know, you could train to the absolute best of your fitness, then it all goes wrong on the day because you're not quite right.
Yeah.
But going back to Elliot, he just wanted to show, I think, the world that it is on a given day that it would be possible to break 2 hours. And okay, he had a diamond formation of runners in front of him. He had these.
But you didn't care. You're still cheering.
Yeah, I still think it was a fantastic moment in sport, and I still think it was groundbreaking what he did. But because it was a test situation, and because of the way it was, for me as a purist, that I can see why they're not saying that's a world record, because it's not been run under normal race conditions. Yeah.
So what's next for you then, Steve? You're doing all these races. You got a book or?
Yeah. So I did write my book. There we
The
go.
Man Inside the
the
Machine.
machine. Okay, so this was a book that it's basically all about my life from birth right up until I ran my 700th marathon at the end of 2015, and then the last chapter, and it just sort of goes on to talk about what I'm looking to achieve going forward. So it's literally about what is there left to do, and I talk a bit about that, and also just kind of explain why it's really a sort of what I've done, how I've managed to do it, but more importantly, why I've done it. It's not just about, and I'm not going to say all the reasons why, because you need to buy my book. But
no, that's fair enough.
For many people, it's always there's always a deeper question of why. We can all say yes to stay fit and healthy because that's like obvious, but there's always usually other reasons, and I just wanted to sort of get it out there as well as to what drives me as a human being, what drives my passion into why I've tried to achieve the things that I've managed to achieve, and I guess just try to show people. And I'm just an ordinary person, as I've said, I wasn't into running at school. I stumbled into it by accident, really, just by seeing a poster. And I guess whether it's running or any other sport or anything in life, I guess what I've tried to show is that, if you've got a dream, if you've got a passion, if you've got something, you want to try and do, definitely go for it, definitely try, because you just don't know what you're capable of until you actually go for it. And a lot of people they either put it off, don't do it, doubt themselves. And the biggest thing I think in a lot of people is what's in there. And that's the hurdle for a lot of people. It's getting your head around things. So It's about believing it's about unlocking potential, really. This is what I try to explain in the book, that people have got more potential than they think they've actually got. And it's the mental barrier, as we've already spoken about, that puts people off thinking they can achieve certain things. So I'm saying open your mind to what is actually possible and go out there and try it if that's what you want to do. You might
succeed.
You might succeed. You've got nothing to lose, and you might, it's quite a powerful thing, mental strength. It really is. Man Inside the Machine, it's on Amazon, but I'm also happy for people to contact me directly, and I'll send them a signed copy.
And we can contact you on Facebook.
I'm on Facebook, Team Edwards 1000. I'm on Twitter, Team Edwards 900. I'm on Instagram. Let's get lockdown done. Let's get back to running. Let's enjoy our sport, and I've got 97 marathons. I just want to get to that 1,000 in one piece, and hopefully set that next record. And then I'm going to take a breather, and I do want to carry on in running. I do want to, as we spoke about, hopefully run into my 70s and maybe 80s, who knows. But in terms of running loads of marathons, I think being sensible and thinking of further longevity, I just want to be able to just carry on running and enjoying the sport, really. So,
would you consider park run? Have you done park run?
I've done one park run.
One? You've only done one? Now, Steve, we have to have words. One park run.
It's terrible, isn't it?
Is it in Coventry? The Coventry one?
No, I mean, I live in Gloucestershire now, so the nearest park run we've got is Morton in Marsh. So it's a lovely little park run at the Fire College. So, if I was going to do more park runs, that would be the one I'd go and do. So I do need to get more into that. At the moment, running marathons most weekends.
Fair enough. I'll let you off.
Thank you for that. So that's good. But maybe, when the day comes that I don't do what I'm doing at the moment, then park runs will definitely become probably more prominent in my a prominent feature in my running. So
I'll let you know, at Northampton Park Run, we have 92-year-old Roger, we have 87-year-old Bob, and we have two 83-year-olds, Gerald and Alan. So, just letting you know, you've got no excuse. You're a youngster.
No excuse, and that gives me quite a good incentive to keep going. That's massive in terms of inspiration. What, you couldn't ask for any better inspiration than that, could you? That's just
And Roger
fantastic.
only started last October, his first part run. Never run one before, never really into running. 92, woke up one morning and said, I'm going to do a park run.
Park run. It's brilliant, isn't it? So he's the sort of person I would expect to go into. He'll be running when he's 100.
Exactly.
So that's incredible.
So to end off the podcast then, what's the best advice you can give to anyone thinking of starting running or even thinking going to a marathon?
Okay, so, and I think we touched on this earlier, it really is, just remember that if you want to get into running and you want to enjoy running, once you get past that stage of, oh, it's not for me, because I know a lot of people sort of give up after sort of 4, 5, 6 weeks. They start getting a few niggles and aches and pains. First thing is, don't do too much too soon. Start off gently. And by too much too soon, we're talking about, not trying to get loads of miles in and that sort of thing. Just be very, very patient. Good runners don't just happen. Good running doesn't just happen overnight. It takes years for you to build up good bone density, good strength. Don't neglect the core and strength work. Treat that just as importantly as you would do going out for your training run. So get yourself strong enough to enjoy your running, and then when you do get past that barrier and boundary of becoming a runner, so you want to carry on being a runner, as you know now, you just don't want to get injured. So the best way to prevent those injuries is to do the core and strength work and to keep your body strong. And then when you do get past the barrier of becoming a runner, you want to stay a runner. So longevity in the sport that you now love is so important, not only physically but mentally for you. So you want to keep going. So look after your body and do that strength work. That's the best advice that I can give. Treat it as importantly as your training run, basically.
Your body is your temple.
Definitely, yeah. But you can still enjoy the stuff you like doing as well. You'll like eating.
Food for thought indeed. So many tips and ideas there from Steve. If you can't learn from someone who runs 903 marathons, then who can you learn from? I really enjoyed those tips, and I have already started to introduce some of his strength training methods into my own regime. As for Steve's running accomplishments, they really are incredible. Fingers crossed we can all get out running competitive races again soon, and Steve can get these final 97 marathons done. It just remains for me to ask you to please leave us a review or just a rating. It really does help us to reach other people. Thanks for listening, and I hope that you can join me again on next week's Running Tales podcast.